Alright, babe, grab your drink, get cozy, maybe pet your very non-murderous cat if you have one, because today we are talking about Christmas monster that is literally a fashion critic with teeth. And no, it's not Krampus. We are going to Iceland and we are meeting the Yule Cat. Icelanders call him this, roughly Jólakötturinn. He is a giant, man-eating murder fluff who prowls around at Christmas and eats you if you did not get new clothes. Imagine dying because your winter outfit was not updated. Like, sorry, sweetie, no socks, no survival. So, picture this. It is Christmas Eve in some tiny Icelandic village. Outside, it is dark, freezing, snow everywhere, wind howling. The whole vibe is do not leave the house unless you want to die. Inside, the family is huddled around the fire, finishing the last bits of spinning and knitting, and the kids are low-key panicking. Because out there, somewhere in the snow, is a huge black cat with glowing eyes, taller than the houses, creeping past windows and peeking inside to see who got new clothes and who did not. If he sees you in something torn or old, if you did not get even one new item of clothing for Christmas, in a lot of versions of that story, he eats you. In some softer versions, he only eats your Christmas bit, that special extra portion of food everyone gets for the holiday. But still, either way, it is not giving cozy Hallmark movie. The first time we actually see this creature written down is in the 1800s in a big collection of Icelandic folktales by Jón Árnason. He describes the Yule Cat as an evil beast that either eats people with no new clothes or eats their Christmas meal. No Santa, no reindeer, just a gigantic seasonal hater patrolling the countryside like, show me your outfit or get in my mouth. Now, here's the part I love. For a long time, people argued about whether this cat was some ancient Viking legend or if Jon just made it extra. A famous Icelandic folklorist, Arni Björnsson, looked at an old expression in Icelandic that literally means to dress the cat, and suggested that Jon might have taken that phrase and turned it into an actual monster in his book. Other scholars are like, hold on, folklore almost never survives in writing from the beginning. So just because we do not have an older written sources does not mean people were not already telling Yule Cat stories. So the safest thing to say is we know for sure it is in writing from the 19th century. It was probably circulating orally before that, and your Árnason is the one who really puts it on the map. But the Yule Cat does not become a true Christmas icon until 1932. A poet named Jóhannes úr Kötlum publishes a collection called Jólakötturinn, A Christmas is Coming. And one of the poems is literally called Jólakötturinn, the Yule Cat. I'm sorry for the pronunciation of all these Icelandic words. I'm really sorry. And this poem is intense. It describes the cat with wide, glaring, glowing eyes, whiskers sharp like bristles, back arch, huge claws, roaming the snowy valleys and shores, hungry and evil, while everyone in their homes shudders at his name. If you hear a pitiful meow, something bad is about to happen. He hunts people, does not care about mice. Very merry and bright, that poem is what really summons the Yule Cat in Icelandic Christmas culture. Later on, it gets put to music. Björk even records a version, kids learn it, it becomes part of school plays, Christmas shows, greeting cards, all of it. Now, here is the big question. Why a cat? And why clothes? Because Iceland does not have any natural big wild cat species. No tigers, no panthers, no oh yeah, this is probably based on that predator over there. So where is this coming from? There are a couple of really interesting theories. First, cats have just always been a big deal in Iceland, more common than dogs historically. Dogs were actually banned in Reykjavik in 1920s, and even now you need a special permit in some places. Cats were the main house animals keeping the mice away, hanging around the farm and the wool. In Norse mythology, the goddess Freyja, goddess of love and sorcery, rides in a chariot pulled by two giant cats, often imagined like Norwegian forest cats. Big fluffy units with long fur, perfect for the cold. So giant magical cats are already part of the cultural wallpaper. Then you also have other creepy cat legends like the Wasteland Cat or Yule Cat in Icelandic stories. Monstrous cats that grow huge, live in graveyards and can literally kill with their stare. So the idea of cat but make it horrifying was definitely around before the Yule Cat gets his Christmas job. Another theory is that the Yule Cat might have been inspired by the Norwegian Yule goat. In some older European traditions, St. Nicholas rides a goat on parades, a goat on a chain as a symbol of having power over evil. So you have this pattern of saint plus weird animal plus winter visit. Iceland does not really do big goats, but they do cats. So you can see how things could blend over time. But the clothing part is actually the most grounded, practical piece of the whole thing. Historically, Iceland survived on sheep. Wool was everything. Clothing, blankets, trade. In autumn, people would gather the wool, and then all winter long the whole household worked together to wash it, tease it, spin it, weave it, knit it. Kids were not sitting there with iPads. They were carding wool, making yarn, knitting socks. Farm workers often got part of their pay in wool, so they could have clothes for winter. And here's where the Yule Cat slinks in. The tradition was that if you helped with the wool work, you would get at least one item of new clothing for Christmas. Mittens, socks, scarf, something small, but something. If you did not help, you might get nothing. So the story became, if you do not get new clothes by Christmas Eve, the Yule Cat will know you are lazy and you will be on the menu. It is basically a giant murderous HR policy. It works on two levels. One, it terrifies kids into helping with spinning and knitting. Two, it reminds everyone that having warm clothes in an Icelandic winter is not optional. It is survival. You do not want to be the one person in the village walking into January with last year's shredded sweater. And of course, this was not just about kids. That poem from 1932 hints that adults were also a little nervous. The Yule Cat checks everyone. If you had got something new and warm, you are safe. If not, good luck. Now, at some point, people start connecting the Yule Cat to Grýla and the Yule Lads, that terrifying troll family we talked about in one of the previous videos. This is actually a 20th century mashup. In Johannes's 1932 book, he includes separate poems, one about the Yule Cat, other about Grýla, Lepalúthi, and the Yule Lads. Later storytellers kind of go, oh, they are all in the same Christmas universe, obviously they live together. And by the mid-1900s, the Yule Cat is widely described as Grýla's pet. So modern folklore often says Grýla is the child-eating troll mom, the Yule Lads are her chaotic sons, and the Yule Cat is the giant house cat that roams around eating people with outdated outfits. In some stories, he's so wild that only Stubir, the smallest Yule Lad, can control him and even rides on his back. It is like the worst possible Christmas family. But the lore checks out. The Grýla part is older, the cat and the tight connection to clothing are later, and the pet of Grýla thing is a modern folklore fusion that stuck. Now, because adults cannot be normal, of course they went too far with the scare tactics. Just like with the Yule Lads, people in Iceland started using the Yule Cat and another Christmas monster to absolutely traumatize children into behaving. It got so bad that in 1746 there is actually a regulation from the authorities banning the practice of scaring kids with the Yule Lads and similar figures. It is literally, can we please stop psychologically destroying the children every December? Thank you. Even with that, the Yule Cat story survives, but slowly softens. It becomes more of a spooky tradition and less of a serious threat. By the 20th and 21st century, you see him on Christmas cards, chocolate wrappers, and kids' books, all fluffy and stylized. Still giant, still spooky, but more creepy mascot than you will die if your socks are old. In Reykjavik today, they actually have a 5-meter tall iron sculpture of the Yule Cat they put up at Christmas in the city center. It has glowing eyes at night, it is very dramatic, and of course everyone takes selfies with it. People complain about the cost when it was installed, because of course they did, but now it is just part of the holiday vibe. And I kind of love that, because underneath the cute modern version you can still feel what the story is really about. It is not just cat bad, clothes good. It is a memory of how harsh those winters are, how much work went into surviving them, and how much communities relied on everyone doing their part. There is this really sweet detail I love from historians. On long winter nights, when everyone was sitting around the fire, spinning and knitting to avoid the Yule Cat, kids would practice reading out loud to entertain the adults. Iceland ended up with incredible high literacy rates, even among poor families, partly because of this culture of working with wool and telling stories together. So you have this weird chain reaction. Brutal winter leads to wool economy, leads to pressure to finish clothes, leads to scary monster cat, leads to family gathering around the fire, leads to kids learning to read. All wrapped up in one giant folklore fluff. So, to sum up our festive fashion killer, the Yule Cat is not ancient Viking canon carved in a stone, but a 19th century folklore cat that probably grew out of older sayings and work traditions. He becomes a Christmas icon in the 1930s through poetry. He is tied to wool production and work ethic. He gets folded into the Grýla and Yule Lads mythos later on, and now he lives on as an LED sculpture, a poem Björk sings, and a reminder that in Iceland, even your Christmas stories are about survival and hard work. Next time someone complains about getting socks for Christmas, just send them this video like, okay, but would you rather be eaten by a giant cat for not getting them at all? Let me know in the comments. If this legend was real, would the Yule Cat eat you this year? Or are you safe because you bought yourself a panic hoodie in November like a responsible adult? Hit like if you learned something new, subscribe if you want more dark origins behind cute holiday traditions, and share this with your favorite cat person so they can meet the ultimate murder fluff.